Welcome to the Hemingway Birthplace Museum. I know some of you have been here before, but I know some of you are new faces, and I just wanted to welcome you on behalf of the Hemingway Foundation. My name is Kate Sjostrom. I am the writer-in-residence here, and we are super excited to have our first storytelling event in the house. I think this is a very apt spot to have a storytelling event. The first time I went on a tour here, I learned that in this dining room, when he was little, Hemingway would sit there for breakfast with his sister Marceline, who his mom kind of raised as his twin. They're about a year apart, but she dressed them exactly alike. Held the sister back so they could be together. And the two of them would sit in that room, and the grandfather would tell them stories. And it was supposedly quite a tradition and quite an event. So I think it's pretty touching and neat to be right here, right through, in the same air, so to speak, as the place where Hemingway first was told stories. And I'm really excited. I'm up here simply to welcome you to the house, to introduce you to our fantastic host. I don't know where our MC is. She's somewhere in there. I'm going to introduce you to our MC, who is the brain behind this event. She and I had quite a lot of fun picking this theme. But beyond that, I don't know what we're in for. And Abra here is going to tell you about our guests and give us all some exciting stories. I'm really excited to see how this turned out.
I'll give you some hints.
Yeah. I just want to tell you that we try to do an event every month here at the Hemingway House. And next month, October 24th, is going to be Evening of Haunted Hemingway. We're going to have 4 area fiction writers reading original works that are sure to make you a little quaking. So this is Abra Millman. She is a storyteller herself, high school educator, English teacher, and an Oak Parker. So we're super excited to have you here at the Hemingway House. Thanks so much.
Hi, guys. In March of 1919, Ernest Hemingway returned to Oak Park after the war and received one of the most famous Dear John letters. Ernie, dear boy, I'm writing this late at night after a long think by myself, and I'm afraid it's going to hurt you. But I'm sure it will not harm you permanently. Serving as an ambulance driver in Italy during World War I, an 18-year-old Ernest Hemingway was taken to Milan Hospital after an explosion badly injured his leg. In that hospital, he met one of the great loves of his life, Agnes von Kurowsky. I practice, I promise. A 26-year-old American nurse who cared for Hemingway as he recuperated. Hemingway was infatuated with her from the start, and for a time she seemed to have feelings for him as well, though she later said that she merely liked him and that the relationship was nothing more than a flirtation. Ouch. We all know this ouch. It's a universal ouch. It's an ouch that bridges language, age, time, and culture. It's an ouch that imprints itself in you. An ouch that can even shape a character or future. It's an ouch that not even Ernest Hemingway could shake. Dear John letters might have been coined during World War II, but the concept of rejection is the origin of humanity. It is a choice. It's a selection, a commentary, an intimate judgment. When presented with the Dear John prompt, our storytellers took their goodbyes from their public lives and their private corners. I am absolutely blown away by their talent, and I'm so thankful for all of them to be here. The first storyteller of the night is Dr. Karen Mitchell, and she will be taking us on a wild ride that is both outrageous and validating, because sometimes it's you, not me. Please welcome Karen.
I'm so honored to be here tonight. What history, right? And I loved Hemingway, but what my real passion were the women in Hemingway's life. I love those stories. And I have, a real connection with them because I've been the recipient of more Dear John letters than I have actually written them, right? And look at me, I'm 70, I'm a retired college professor, and I don't look like the typical person who would be involved in a whole lot of Dear John letters, but I actually am. And I definitely don't look like a woman who, 2 minutes after church services were over, would be in a conversation with a man who was naked. But it happened. And it's strange, and life is strange, and that can sometimes be good, and sometimes it's just freaking strange. So I met Larry online during the winter of 2021, which was, as you remember, COVID lockdown. And I had lived alone for months, and really alone for about a year because of the quarantine. And I was about ready to lose my mind. I really was. I was so tired of Zoom happy hours and book clubs and watercolor lessons, and I was desperate to go somewhere. So I found out that Facebook offered a free dating app. I mean, what could be better than free and Facebook, right? Yeah, right. So I thought, why not? Why not? However, like most free things, there was a catch. And Larry was quite the catch. Now, to be fair, he had an interesting profile. He had included some pictures of his political cartoons that he had penned, and his bookcase, and even his record albums, vinyl. And I thought, well, wow, that's a unique approach to introducing yourself to the dating world, and I thought, well, why not? So I swiped right, and we matched. Yes, we did. So fast forward a month. We've been talking on the phone. We've been texting. We've been dancing around, meeting. Now, we were both seniors, so we'd been vaccinated. Which is important here, right? Because we're in a pandemic. And he was brave enough to venture outside of his house. And I was desperate to venture outside of my condo. Desperate. So we decided on a Sunday afternoon, with light snow falling, that we would meet for coffee and possibly a movie. And I drove to the local Panera, which was 8 minutes away, and Larry drove 90 minutes to have coffee with moi. So when he emerged from his weather-beaten light blue Ford pickup, I was struck by his full head of white hair and his 6-foot frame. He looked somewhat like Jed Clampett, only not as handsome. And he was a little bit older than his pictures had led me to believe. So far, not exactly what I expected, but no major red flags. So I said, okay, let's have coffee, And after about 45 minutes of talking to him, I knew for sure that there were not going to be any romantic sparks. But the man was nice enough, and he had driven 90 minutes, and he really wanted to see a movie. And to be honest, so did I. A movie in a theater, my God. So he followed me in my car across the way to the movie theater. When Larry entered the Marcus Theater lobby, he was carrying, and I'm not kidding you here, a giant goldfish bowl. And it was full of Jolly Rancher candies. Okay? And I thought, well, this must be some approach to saving money. I mean, we're on a fixed income. And he says, so, you want a piece of candy? And I was like, okay. And I very gingerly took one off the top, and I looked at it, and I thought, watermelon, it's one of my favorite, flavors. Popped it in my mouth, and he said, so you like Jolly Ranchers? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, is that your favorite flavor? And I said, well, no, not really. Green apple is my favorite flavor. I love green apple. And he said, well, reach down in that goldfish bowl and fish around in it, and you'll find one, because I put a lot of green apple in there. So I reach down, and I feel something. And I'm like, well, that's a lot bigger than a Jolly Rancher. So I pull it out, and in my hand is a prescription bottle of Viagra. Fricking Viagra. And I was astounded, okay? I was totally astounded. I said, Larry, this is not going to happen. You're a nice man, but I don't have those kind of feelings for you, and I agreed to a movie. Just a movie. And his face fell, and he said, well, you can't blame a guy for trying. I said, no, I want to be clear. I'm not looking for a relationship. I want someone to share a meal with and have coffee with and maybe enjoy a movie, and that is all. I said, so we can still see the movie? And I said, yes, but no hand-holding. And that was my first blunder. He called again a few weeks later. He said, how about going to a movie premiere in Waukon, Iowa? And I was like, Waukon, Iowa? Why Waukon? Well, it's an Iowa movie, and it's about New Providence and the girls' 6-on-6 basketball team that was the last girls' team to win state. And I was like, okay. And then I thought, damn it. I want to see that documentary. I had been on a grant committee for Humanities Iowa that had funded that film. So I drive off to Waukon, Iowa for a movie premiere. Now, to be honest, it wasn't much of a premiere. There were maybe 10 people there. I mean, after all, it's Waukon and it's the pandemic, right? But I got to tell you, I really loved that documentary. It was quite good. And the Chinese dinner we shared afterwards was equally good. So overall, as a second encounter, it was not bad. No Viagra, no sexual innuendo. Larry was staying in his lane. So we continued to chat on the phone for another few weeks. And then one Saturday afternoon in mid-March, a very excited Larry called. Guess where I am? I said, South Carolina. Nope, I'm in Waterloo, Iowa. I said, oh, I was hoping you'd be someplace warm. He goes, no. Guess why I'm here? And I said, I have no idea. Why are you here? Well, I bought a new used van. I said, well, congratulations, Larry. Yep, and I want to take you to lunch. I said, oh, no. He said, no, come on, you'd be the first person to ride in my new used van. And I said, look, Larry, that's really sweet of you, but I would need to shower, and no worries, I still got to sign all the papers. I'll pick you up in about an hour. I don't know, Larry. Please say yes. Okay, fine, yes. Give me an hour. So I gave him my address, and in an hour we were on our way to lunch to celebrate the purchase of his new used van. And that was my second blunder. So it was about 5 o'clock when we pulled into my driveway with dessert in a take-home container. And the sun was starting to set low in the sky, and a light snow was falling. And I said, Larry, before you hit the road, would you like to have coffee and dessert? And he said, absolutely. And an hour turned into 2, and 2 turned into 3, and the snow was piling up. And I said, Larry, you need to get on the road. It's getting kind of dicey out there. And he goes, yeah, the weather here says that there's a warning for ice on Highway 20. And I got to tell you, I need new tires on that new van. I said, oh, Larry, no. You cannot spend the night here. He goes, well, why not? You got plenty of room. And I said, Larry, no. He said, hey, I'll be a perfect gentleman. Now, I gave this careful thought. I really did. Since the Viagra incident, he had, as I said, stayed in his lane. He had not pushed me all that much. And it was still within my comfort zone, which, given that I'd been in hiding for a year, was really pretty wide, my comfort zone. And how do you turn down a friend who really needs a place to stay when it's a terrible blizzard outside? Not terrible, but enough of a blizzard outside that you would feel like a real bad person to send him out in the night, cold night, in a van with bald tires. So I said, okay, you can stay. But when I get up in the morning, you need to be gone because I have church services that stream at 10 o'clock and I want my privacy by 9:30. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. And that was the third blunder. I woke the next morning to a very quiet house. I let my dog out to relieve himself, and I got my coffee ready, and I sat down for streaming church services. I had learned over time to really enjoy that hour of meditation. I didn't have the distraction of other people sitting around me, shuffling their bulletin, etc. And I could concentrate on the scripture and the prayers of the people and the sermon, and I really loved that time. It was just mine. I cherished it. And the service had just ended, and I was getting ready to refill my coffee mug when the guest bathroom door opened. And there Larry stood in my pink bathrobe. Yes, my pink bathrobe. What the hell are you doing here? I thought you left. I actually looked in the guest room and it looked like you were gone. What the hell, Larry? Ooh, that's a real nice bathroom you got. And a great bathtub. Nice and big. I filled it up with hot water and pretty soon I was asleep. You've been sleeping in my bathtub for 2 hours? Yes, so. Well, you need to get dressed and go home now. Well, I don't see what the big rush is. You don't have anything else to do today. You said so yourself. And besides, I like it here. I said, excuse me, you like it here? Well, yeah, seems to me you could use someone to help you out around here. This is a 3-bedroom condo, and it could use a little work. I could make that screened-in porch into a 4-season room with just a few $1,000s. And you could get rid of this carpet and put down a nice laminate floor, and that would increase the value of the home. Maybe knock down that wall between the kitchen and the living room so you could see the TV while you cook. Now, he is walking around my living room in my pink bathrobe, eyeing my porch and making his way into my kitchen, and I'm afraid that I'm going to hear a demolition going on any minute now. Well, I was no longer dumbstruck. I was furious. Larry, you have stepped all over my boundaries. I'm not looking for a roommate. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm most definitely not looking for a husband or a contractor. You need to take off that pink bathrobe, put your clothes on, hop in your new used van, and go back to Ames. And you need to do it now. Well, I guess I overstayed my welcome. He went into the bedroom to change, and when he had dressed, I was standing at the front door waiting. Larry, this is over. I don't want to hear from you again, ever. Have I made myself clear? Well, you'll cool down and change your mind. That's highly unlikely. Goodbye, Larry. Bye-bye, Karen. I shut and locked the door. All 3 locks. Now, what was I thinking? How could I be so stupid to let someone like Larry get into my life, into my home? I mean, I like to be nice to people, right? I'm Karen, I'm nice. But I was making all kinds of really weird mistakes during COVID, like horrendous mistakes. The kind of mistake that you don't want your sister to know about. Why she's not here tonight is because I don't want her to know. So over the next 2 hours, I fumed every time Larry sent me a text message. Obviously, he did not heed my words. So I played my final card. And I think Papa Hemingway would be proud. A Dear John text. Simple, direct, and only 6 words. Restraining order coming unless you desist. I never heard from him again.
Amazing. And it was him, not you. Okay. So, writing a Dear John letter can really hurt. Saying goodbye can really hurt. It can hurt as much, even more than actually receiving the rejection. In our next story, Patti, Minglin?
Close enough.
Okay. Minglin grapples with this paradox and discovers new chapters behind the books that she has to close. Please welcome Patti.
I first want to just say I was an English major in college, and the one semester that was the hardest for me was my Ernest Hemingway semester. We didn't vibe a lot with some of his stories and my take on it, but there's something about being in this house and feeling that's just like, it's like my little teenage, well, sort of teenage girl dream come true, I guess. So, Dear Mom, I used to be. We've had a good run. Really, we have. But the time has come to break up with you. I know you're exhausted, and I can feel you're rolling your eyes as you think, I don't even have time for this conversation. And honestly, you don't. Depending on when you're reading this letter, you are either desperately trying to pack backpacks while discovering an uneaten lunch in at least one of them, you're battling another homework war, or you're staying up late to finish sending those emails that you swore you would send before you left the office. You, my friend, are living on caffeine and adrenaline, with one eye constantly on the clock so you don't miss a deadline, a sporting event, or, and this is your biggest fear, picking up one of your children from daycare. All of which of these have happened at least once this past month. Now might be a really good time to revisit that quote by Betty Friedan, "You can have it all, just not all at the same time." You've written it on a crumpled piece of paper that you will find at the bottom of your work bag. The fact that it is crumpled says everything you need to know. I know how you feel because I was you. Literally, I was you. That constant tug of war between giving your all at work and showing up at home and still wondering why you never quite feel like you're in the right place. You're juggling school projects and emails and carpools, and you're trying to remember if anyone fed the dog. Spoiler alert, nobody fed the dog. And somehow you're supposed to spend quality time with your husband and your friends. Like those things ever even make your calendar. Instead of feeling accomplished, you feel like you're always one step behind, wondering, am I doing enough? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Even though it feels like pure chaos most days, you're really not off track. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Because hidden in those early morning rushes out the door and the half-finished conversations and continued search for lost items that are always exactly where you said they were in the first place are these tiny little moments that feel like background noise but are actually shaping you into the mom and the human that you will become. They may look like blips on the radar now, but someday you'll realize those blips, they're magic. Like the afternoon when Hannah came home in second grade utterly crushed because she had to move her frog to yellow. A devastating public takedown in the world of classroom behavior. Thankfully, you made it home early that day, and you were there too when her blotchy little face came through the door to hand her a popsicle and pop in a Lizzie McGuire DVD. You couldn't prevent the yellow frogs, but you made the landing a little bit softer. Or the day that Nate graduated to the big kid in the daycare room and suddenly decided your lipstick kiss on the back of his hand was no longer socially acceptable. He whispered, "Could you kiss the inside of my hand instead so no one else can see?" He still needed you, just not the evidence, which honestly sums up parenting in one gesture. I mean, they want you close, but could you please stop embarrassing them? One minute you're their comfort object, and the next you're the PR crisis they're trying to manage. But either way, you're still the person they're reaching for. And then there's Jack, sweet white-eyed Jack, who thought Nate and his junior high friends were superheroes. At their football practices, he'd plant himself on the sidelines waiting for one of them to toss him the ball until the night at the high school game when Nate and his friends made plans to meet up. Jack assumed he was in on it too. You'll never forget that lump in your throat when you had to explain he wasn't. You bought him a hot chocolate, sat with him by the concession stand, and encouraged him to ask a kid his own age to play catch. That was the first glimpse of him building a circle that belonged entirely to him. You think you're missing it all. You're not able to volunteer as a room mom, and you can't make it to every field trip. But here's the truth. The kids won't remember who cut out the lopsided snowflakes that are on the classroom windows. They will remember who handed them a popsicle after a hard day, who kissed the inside of their hand, and who encouraged them to make some friends of their own. You're actually doing it. And I'm so proud of you. So why the breakup? Because as great as you've been, it's time to let you go. You did your job. You got us through those bleary-eyed mornings when the Caillou theme song was still ringing in your ears. A sound that could make even coffee feel powerless. You stayed through the messes, the chip bags wedged into couches, and that unmistakable, beautiful adolescent perfume of sweat, Axe, and Bath & Body Works spray. And through the moments when the guilt of not being everywhere was tempered only by the sweetness of being exactly where you needed to be. But I don't need you the same way anymore. You were the mom I had to be then, not the mom I get to be now. So this is where we part ways. I can't be the mom I need to be now if I keep holding on to you. You were the survival version of me, the one powered by stale goldfish crackers and coffee sweetened by a Go-Gurt because that's the only thing you have in the fridge. But I'm ready for a new chapter. I want to savor these kids as the adults they're becoming, not just grit my teeth through the chaos of who they used to be. Now, don't get me wrong. You'll always be stitched into who I am. You're the one who taught me resilience, humor in the middle of the madness, and how to love even when I was bone tired. But here's the really hard part. If I'm breaking up with you, the mom I used to be, I also have to let go of the little ones who made you. The kids who needed bedtime stories, cheerleaders in the stands, and someone willing to laugh at their knock-knock jokes 100 times, even when they got the punchline wrong 99 of them. As much as I adored those tiny versions, I can't hold on to them if I want to fully see and actually enjoy the grown-up humans standing in front of me now. Because the truth is, the adults they've become aren't strangers at all. I caught glimpses of them long ago, and the little girl who came home in tears when her frog was moved to yellow, that was really her rehearsing empathy. That would grow into compassion that comes out in such beautiful ways when she is in front of her classroom or mothering twins. In the little boy who asked me to kiss the inside of his hand, already practicing that kind of quiet strength and need for connection that would grow into the man who listens deeply and shows up as a steady reminder of courage for everyone he loves. And in the little brother on the sidelines, he was just hinting at the leader he'd become, building his own circle instead of always chasing someone else's. They've been becoming themselves all along. And you have gotten to sit in the front row watching it happen. So thank you. Thank you for the minivan pep talks, the ability to read Brown Bear with my eyes closed, and the way you somehow made it through mornings fueled by nothing but dry shampoo and determination. And seriously, thank you for the dry shampoo. That is still on a steady rotation. You weren't flawless, but you were exactly who those kids needed in that season. You showed up when it mattered most, even if you didn't always feel like you were. And in doing so, you left your fingerprints on the people they were becoming. And now it's time, not to erase you, but to let you rest. I don't need the survival mom anymore. I get to be the mom who lingers, who listens, who laughs without looking at a clock. I get to see my kids as the full, complicated, and amazing humans they've become, and even watch some of them step into parenting themselves. That might be the sweetest part. Realizing the love and lessons you once carried for them are now being carried forward by them. So here's to you, dear friend. We had a good run, but I've got new work to do. With love always, the mom you were raising all along. Ooh, P.S., the best news. You get to buy brand name snacks now. And they will literally stay in your pantry, and you're not searching for them under a bed or in somebody's closet. Thank you.
I would like to tell you guys that I had an unsuccessful breakup this last summer. I decided to break up with making dinner. It was a really long school year, and day after day, what's for dinner? What's for dinner? Seriously. I had it. I quit. I made a proclamation. I bought cold cuts and frozen pizza, and I crossed my arms. My wife entertained my civil disobedience for a few days before telling me that my protest was not real. I had to return to the kitchen and cook dinner for my family. Some things are really, really hard, or actually nearly impossible to quit. And our next teller, Austin Jordan, knows all too well. Welcome, Austin.
I don't know how I'm going to follow all those amazing stories that we started our night with, but here I am. So I'm going to try. My name is Austin. Again, I'm excited to be here with you guys. A little bit about me. I'm a local comedy actor, improviser, kind of friendly neighborhood IT guy. If you ever have a problem, Swiss Army knife of just solutions over here. So if you ever need somebody to vent to, or your PC goes down, I'm right here. But I got involved with this. I actually got the word from Mike. We do improv together out in Villa Park. So if you're ever out in Villa Park, skits and giggles, they're hilarious. You might see us together. But Mike came up to me after a show and he was like, I think you have a story to tell. So here I am. Thank you, Mike. Dear Career Fears. I was born a minority of a minority. Black and Mormon. Wow. Exactly. You get used to hearing that. You really do. You get used to being alone in a room, that's for sure. And when it came time for college, I chose BYU Idaho, or it chose me. When I arrived with my parents, we made up 75% of the black community. Yeah. The math was super simple. 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's it. That's it. Yep. When I first got out there, I was really going to try the Mormon thing for real. I grew up Mormon, but I wasn't exactly practicing. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. They're here. These are my parents right here. If you couldn't tell, such a diverse crowd, am I right? But I got there with the intention of actually trying to be as Mormon as possible, a Peter priesthood, as they call it. Full immersion. My first semester, I packed my schedule with mission prep classes. I was hours of scripture, doctrine, rules. I mean, it didn't stick. I didn't stick. Because I believe you should practice what you preach, and I definitely wasn't practicing. That realization pushed me to look for something else, something creative, something that brought me joy. At BYU Idaho, the rule was no beards. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're getting kicked out immediately. Yeah. No beards. I mean, that was only one of a few strange rules, like no open-toed shoes on campus, no shorts, no shoulders to be seen. But the one that I struggled with, of course, was no beards, no stubble, no shadow. Shave or get out. As you can tell, my beard grows curly, and each shave broke me out. Blood bumps, the works. I heard there was a way out from fellow students. A shaving exemption that was handed out by the Honor Code Office. Honor Code Office, yes, Title IX. They pretty much said it was impossible to get, but I booked an appointment anyway. I sat in the waiting room for 30 minutes, filled out the paperwork. The doctor walked in, and I told him, I know it's really impossible, but I'm looking for an exemption. He didn't even hesitate. He's like, oh, of course, because you're black. Well, here you go. He said as he signed the paper and handed it to me, just like that. I mean, I laughed just like you did. But not because I found it funny exactly, but because something felt funny. I got what I wanted, but his words stayed. On campus, strangers reached for me, in the cafeteria, at Walmart. Can I touch your hair? They asked, always smiling, always curious. I let them. Again, I laughed it off. But I felt like a question that needed to be answered. At school, I studied physics. I liked breaking things down, seeing how they ticked, how they moved, what moved them, dissecting the forces around us that we can't see but can feel. The unknown. It scratched that, as the French call it, l'appel du vide. Does anybody know what that is? No? Look it up afterwards. That's l'appel du vide had always been there. It was always ringing. It was always calling. But in class, there's chalkboards, equations, hours in the lab. But one day that stood out to me is my professor stepped up to the board and a fellow student rose their hand. And they're like, hey, can you help us solve problem 5A? We were really struggling with that. And the professor walked up to the board. He began to write out his answer to the equation. And then he started looking back at his math. That's not correct. Hold on. Trying it again. Can you look up this equation for me? Okay. He froze. He couldn't answer our homework. And I packed up my things and left, I laughed again, but quietly this time. I missed acting. I missed theater. I took a theater history class just to be near it. And at the end of the class one day, the professor said his improv troupe was looking for a new member. I'd, at this point, never done improv, but something told me to try. 40 people showed up for that audition. I made the callbacks. My name was on the list. I was a new member. Later, I learned how it came to pass. A longtime member of the group told me they couldn't decide between me and another. And they decided to pray, as Mormons do. They love to pray about everything. So as they bowed their heads, just then, they heard sirens. Police sirens. And they all looked up at once, and they thought the same thing. I hope that's not him. Me too. I hope that's not. I really hope that's not for me too, But they looked at each other and laughed because they were like, if we all thought of him at the same time, then it's got to be him. And they chose me. After that moment, I chased comedy further, to Chicago, the motherland. I was done with Idaho. I needed out. It was a landlocked area where the closest In-N-Out was 4 hours away. And I definitely went a couple of times in between classes. But when I left, it was the end of December, just before New Year's, and when I started the trek. 2 a.m. Coming through Wyoming, it was negative 11 degrees. Yep, snow everywhere. But I packed my 2015 Jeep Compass and I hit the road. Did not want to look back. I got a 30-hour Spotify playlist. I was not looking back. 2 hours in, while I'm crossing through Wyoming, narrow, winding road, a drop to my right off a very steep mountainside, frozen lake below. My car died. It was a little like, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change. I'm asking him to change. Pitch black at this point. I tried to start my car every 15 minutes. Nothing. I went to the back of my car, grabbed the warmest blanket I could, and I wrapped myself up. The closest town was 8 miles down this mountain, and nasty ice. No cars around. No truck, nothing in sight. For a full hour, I bundled myself up. Every 15 minutes, I tried the ignition. Nothing. No sound, not even a click. Nothing. Finally, after my hands had been numb for just trying, I tried one last time on the hour, and the car roared back to life. I didn't question it. I just kept moving forward. When I tell you 24 hours straight from Rexburg, Idaho to Aurora, Illinois, I literally only stopped for gas. It was straight through. I did not sleep, did not stop. Straight through. And when I got back, the mechanic was like, oh yeah, this battery is shot. You got this car in 2015. It's a 2015? Yeah, this car is from 97. This battery is from 97. When I arrived home, my plan was to start my journey at Second City's training center. I drove an hour each way from the suburbs to Chicago for class, for the dream. I got into the conservatory, the year-long program. I made it. Then COVID came. The world closed. In the middle of our classes, we now had to switch over to Zoom. Graduation that was promised online, instead, Zoom performances trapped in our rooms. First class to graduate online, and I'm not touting that achievement anywhere. I worked every job I could. I was a ranch hand. I worked at a furniture store. I was hospital IT. I was a water tester for other hospitals, checking for Legionnaire. I worked as a haunted house scarer, audio tech for children's musicals, AV tech that would travel across country, miking up very famous people that you might know. Yeah, I'll share the story. Do you guys know Dr. Fauci? I was in D.C. For a National Association doctors event, miking up these people, and we would get our list of participants the night before, and it was Wednesday night, I remember, and I looked at my list and I was like, oh, I gotta mic up Dr. Fauci. That's interesting. I was a little nervous, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. I got this. He came back. Mind you, he didn't come to any of the rehearsals. He came right before his time, surrounded by his security. And I was just like, hey, quickly, I'll just mic you, just like this. I'm going to mic you, and then I'm going to run off. So I mic'd him, and I said, hey, are you cool with me putting your mic pack in your left front pocket? And he's like, absolutely, go right ahead. So he goes on stage, gets his award, comes back off, again, surrounded by his security. I'm like, hey, Doc, came back over to get your pack. Grabbed the mic, dove my hand into his pocket. He's actually really nice. He put his hands up. He's like, go ahead. Dove my hand into his pocket to pull out his mic pack and ended up pulling out a massive wad of cash. Right out of Fauci's pocket. Staring down security like, I'm going to put this right back where I found it. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I had to deal with as I chased this dream, you know. These auditions, they came and went. Most, as you can tell, ended in rejection. Some ended in silence, no response at all. I studied for certifications, worked full-time, worked part-time, 2 jobs, 3 jobs. I lost sleep, relationships, jobs, my appetite. I wanted to quit, but I stayed. Because acting and comedy make me feel, it makes me think, it makes me human, the most human I can be. It opens a part of me I don't show the world. Because why would I? Look around. What good does being vulnerable do? But comedy is like physics. I can break it down, see how it ticks, how it moves, what moves it, the forces around us we cannot see but can feel, the unknown. It scratches the same l'appel du vide, only this time the void laughs back. In time past, it always does. Now I've played Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice at the Morton Arboretum. Sold out 12-show run. Stood under hot lights in theaters, regurgitating memorized sonnets, performed with improv troupes across the city, and I stand here now before you. That is my story. Yours truly, Austin.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Wow. Okay, so there is a real art to a Dear John letter. It is not crafted, if it's not crafted with consideration and intent, it can leave somebody with a feeling of emptiness and unsatisfaction. Dear John letters A Dear John letter is essentially the last word. And if you don't get it right, you might have to break up again. And with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Mike Mitchell.
It's amazing to be here, surrounded by colleagues, friends, and family. And I have to say thank you to Abra. She asked me to do this, and I will forever be grateful for this opportunity. So thank you.
Stop your face. You're the one who did it.
Dear Fenton, please accept this letter as my official intent to retire from Fenton High School at the end of the 2026-2027 school year. In exchange for tendering this intent, I am requesting the rights and benefits outlined in the district retirement incentive as described in the current collaborative bargaining agreement between Fenton Education Association and District 100. Dr. Mitchell. That's the formal part. The official version. The one that satisfies the paperwork and unlocks the benefits outlined in the retirement incentive. Thank you, union brothers and sisters. Whew. It gets filed, initialed, and quietly mourned by the payroll department. But the truth is that version didn't nearly say enough. It felt cold, impersonal, like ending a decades-long relationship on a Post-it note. Who does that? And please, don't assume that I'm just being overly dramatic because I'm an English and drama teacher. Face it, a career in teaching is a relationship. A long, messy, beautiful, maddening, exhausting, exhilarating, hilarious, deeply fulfilling relationship. It's like a marriage. You were my other half, my better, sometimes more chaotic half. I mean, we had passion. We had fights. We had budget cuts. And now after all these years, I'm breaking up with you? But not for another 4 years? So yeah, awkward. I mean, try telling somebody that you want to break up with them and then living with them for another 4 years for the sake of the children. I mean, because that's what this is. It's a long, slow motion breakup. Shared custody with about 700, students, teenagers, and a severely overworked copy machine. And all of my colleagues know. They started whispering in the halls. Did you hear? He's leaving her. It's been coming for a while. And some of them whisper as they pass under their breath, lucky bastard. Occasionally someone will ask, how are you holding up? I answer with a laugh, a sigh, a 1,000-yard stare into the vending machine. But if I'm being completely honest, after I sent in that letter, half the time I don't know how I feel. Fenton, you know that there were others before you. I mean, my first time with the school, I'm just going to say I was clumsy. I was young. I did not know what I was doing. And besides, she was a wreck. She could never be satisfied. And this was not working. And I thought maybe teaching is just not my orientation. But unsure, I decided to try again. Let me tell you, the second one was a real wildcat. No, seriously, mascot was Wildcats. But believe me, she lived up to the name. I mean, with her, everything was new and thrilling. I was experimenting. I was trying things I never thought I would try. I pulled all-nighters. I got bold. I took some risk. And, man, she made me feel wanted. She made me feel appreciated. It was fun. Maybe a little too much fun. I mean, because, it can be exciting and all, but eventually you realize that wild flings, they just, they don't last forever. I was growing up, and I needed something a little bit more stable. And that's when a mutual friend leaned over and said, "Have you ever considered Fenton?" So I took a chance, I interviewed, we met, and I just knew. You were the real thing. You were not some fling. The kind that you settle down with. The one that makes you better. And I fell hard. And I rarely looked back. I'll admit it. Over the years, I did flirt with some other jobs. A wandering eye here and there. Just a little light resume updating. But there was one really attractive offer with an actual contract. And I remember talking it over with my actual better half, Maureen. And she said that she would support whatever I decided. But, just deep down, I knew I could never leave you, Fenton. Because we had history. Because we shared a Google Drive. We had a bond that could not be broken unless the Wi-Fi went down, which it often did. But don't forget, the minute I turned in that letter, the minute I break the news to you, you turn around and get a makeover. A whole new science wing. Quite honestly, it was a little passive-aggressive. Like, fine, leave. I'll just get hotter. It's okay. I was never into the science thing anyway. Always an arts and humanities guy, and I always will be. But man, we've had our highs. 3 state titles for technical excellence in contest drama. Yes, I'm still humble about it, just aggressively so. Dozens of musicals and plays, each one held together with gaffer's tape, caffeine, and the tears of teenagers. Singing holiday songs with the Fenton faculty singers. Talent shows with the Fenton faculty rock band, Extra Credit, where I got to live out my 80s bassist dream, playing Aerosmith's crying, "Long Live Rock." Oh, we took field trips to Navy Pier to see Shakespeare plays, which is basically my own version of Disneyland. And yeah, there were some minor instructional hiccups. Like the one time that I had the kids assume the tornado position in the hallway when it was actually a fire drill. Yeah, right in front of the exit door, too. But who among us have not had that, confusing state of being during a crisis? And while I may joke about the little disasters, we also did a lot of good together. I remember sitting in the back during a teacher institute when our superintendent had told us that our community had grown in more need of assistance, that we had students, our population was over 70% in need in free and reduced lunch. And that statistic hit me like a brick. And I remember calling up my sister, Gina, who works at the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and I asked her what could be done. And she suggested sponsoring a mobile pantry, which I then went to the superintendent and I said, "Hungry students need food to learn." 6 words and a whole story. And from that moment, something bigger grew. It was a real movement to support our community. And it's one of the single most important things we've ever done together. And graduation. I mean, who could forget graduation? Getting the honor to work with graduation speakers, helping them write inside jokes for their class, tearful tributes to their teachers, family, and friends. Oh, every year just gets me in the heart. Watching those students walk across the stage with their names mispronounced. The motorboards barely hanging on. Man, and watching them walk into a world that maybe, just maybe, we helped to prepare them for. I mean, every year it reminds me it's worth doing. You were also there, Fenton, during the moments that shaped my personal life. The birth of my daughter, Molly, in 2001. The birth of my other daughter, Mia, in 2004. You were there during the death of my father. It was a really dark time. But you were also there years later when my oldest daughter, Maddie, walked on your stage for her first performance, and she fell in love with theater the same way I did. And for me, that was like the circle completing itself. And let's not forget the little quirks. Somewhere along the way, I became the weird teacher. The one that can balance chairs on his face, juggle in the hallways, and pull out a guitar and turn a poetry lesson into a rock concert. But I will stand by the idea that playing Bob Dylan songs is the best poetry lesson you could ever do. Yeah. So many good times and so many fond memories. But man, we also had hard times. And that year during COVID, you were such a bitch. Oh. We only communicated through screens. Like emotionally distant exes communicating through some kind of court-ordered app. I think that's when I started to feel the distance between us. We just weren't connecting the way that we used to. And I was so relieved when we finally went back to face-to-face learning. But Fenton, you were toxic for months after that. The tension between administration and staff, it was like living in a house where no one talked at dinner. And people just slammed the cupboard doors a little too hard. It felt less like a love affair and more like a messy divorce. And that's when I knew things would never fully return. I mean, strike votes were taken. Picket lines were painted. Now, since then, some things got better. Obviously, the science wing. But that feeling that I was done, it stayed. 25 years is a long time. Actually, 26. And we've grown apart. I've changed. You've changed. And while this breakup may be mutual, it's still a breakup. I'll miss you. I'll miss the inside jokes, the all-school assemblies, the "Have you seen my Chromebook course in the hallways?" I'll miss my friends. And yeah, we're going to have to figure out how to split that up in the divorce. But I'm sure you'll get full custody of some. Others I'll get to visit on weekends for coffee, nostalgic complaints. But now it's time. Well, not today or tomorrow, but, 2 years from now, which is both forever and next Tuesday, basically, with teachers. And when that final bell rings, I'll leave that building, new science wing and all, and because of that, I realized that letter of intent to retire, it wasn't enough. Fenton, you deserve a proper Dear John. So here it is, 2 years Too late. Dear Fenton, thank you for the laughter, the chaos, the memories, the donuts in the staff lounge that no one ever claimed, but I definitely ate, for the chance to teach, to perform, to grow. You weren't perfect, but neither was I. But you know what? We made something good, something worth remembering, and I dare say that students will remember us. So here's to the next 2 years of cohabitating until the metaphorical lease is up. And when it is, I will quietly pack up my posters, grab my juggling balls and guitar before I return my keys and sneak one last donut out on the way. But not with bitterness. No, with gratitude. Deep, weird, hard to explain gratitude for it all. So, with love and possibly a few props that I stole from the scene shop, yours truly, Mike.
Mike has been a mentor and a boss and a friend and even a father figure. And his retirement, I don't like it. I mean, I want it, but I'm sad about it. Anyway, thank you, everybody. This was incredible. I love this idea. Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Kate, and thank you, everybody who showed up and the storytellers. And I feel like Dear John is something that is, I feel like there's so many Dear Johns, right? Like it's just, it's an infinite pool. And it's okay to say goodbye to something. And it's okay to say, no, I'm okay. I'm going to move on. So let's cherish that. And Ernest Hemingway, let's go get drunk.